Mezuzah is when I became observant, then I didn't know anything. I didn't have a rabbi, nobody guided me. I just had my experience, and I had a friend who told me what to do. Okay. And I really was not doing much. I used to put tefillin on, I used to say morning prayers, I didn't mix meat and dairy. Then I moved into a new home, and I was like, okay, I'm a Jew, I need mezuzot. So I decided to go and buy mezuzot. I drove to the city, I lived in Chicago, and I wasn't observant at all. But walking into the store, I felt very uncomfortable, so I put a yarmulke on, just to walk in. And I walk in with denim pants and a nice short sleeve shirt and a big tattoos on my arms. So I, pulled the shirt. I felt very embarrassed that the tattoos are showing on the hand and the t-shirt was short. But nevertheless, I walk into the store, I put a yarmulke on, and I say, hello, I need a mezuzah. And I was like, okay, if I'm already doing a mitzvah, I'm doing it all the way. And I had 8 doorposts. Usually people buy 1 mezuzah for the front door. I was like, no, I have 8 doorposts, I need 8 mezuzot. At the time I had a lot of money, and I was like, give me the best mezuzot you have in the market. Not some cheap, give me the most expensive mezuzot you have here. Okay, so I bought my 8 mezuzot, and it was so funny because they kept looking at me, and my shirt kept going up, and I kept pulling the shirt down, and I felt so embarrassed. But nevertheless, okay, so I go out of the store with my new mezuzot, and I start driving home. Now, I'm driving home, and it was Friday afternoon, and I was like, you know what? I don't think it's the right time to move into a new house on a Friday. It's Shabbat. It's probably bad luck. You know what? So I call my landlord, and I tell him, listen, is that okay if I move in on a different day? And he's like, yeah, you can move in whenever you want, of course. As long as you start paying from today. I don't care when you move in, just start paying from today. I was like, okay, no problem, so I'm going to move in on Sunday. I said, I'll take a hotel, who needs the headache? I was like, it seems to me like bad luck to move into a new home on a Shabbat. So I took a hotel room, and he tells me, you have to bring me the first month rent in a money order, and the security deposit also in a money order. Okay, where am I going to get a money order right now? I'm driving on the highway, so I see a big sign for Western Union. I get off the highway to some neighborhood. I was probably the first Jew that ever stepped foot on that neighborhood. Not such a great neighborhood in Chicago. And okay, I'm standing in line there in the Western Union. Probably don't. No, wait, so I'm standing there in the Western Union. There's like maybe 300 people. There's a long line. I'm just standing there waiting to buy my money order. Suddenly I hear somebody screaming from the back. It's like talking very loud. And I just turned around to see who's the person that's making all this commotion. And as I turn around, this guy screams to me, Shalom! I'm like, what? And he comes to me, starts hugging me, Shalom, I'm Jewish too, I'm also Jewish, and he's hugging me. And I'm like, shut up, you're gonna get us killed here, what are you talking about? Relax. And he's hugging me and he starts screaming, I'm Jewish too, my mom is Jewish, my grandmother's Jewish, I had a bar mitzvah. And I'm like, why are you telling me all this? And in my mind, I'm like, how does he even know that I'm Jewish? I mean, I know the nose is pretty big, but how do you know that I'm Jewish? Suddenly I remembered, the yarmulke. I forgot the yarmulke on my head. And he starts telling me his whole ancestry tree, his aunt and his this and his bar mitzvah. And finally he tells me, hey, do you smoke? And I'm like, yeah, why, you want a cigarette? And he's like, no, you want to quit smoking? And I'm like, yeah, I actually do. Now I was a very, very heavy smoker. I used to smoke like 3 packs a day of Marlboro red Marlboro. I was cigarette after cigarette. And maybe a month before this event, one time I was driving on a highway and I started getting pain in my heart. And I literally thought, that's it, I'm getting a heart attack. I started seeing white dots everywhere. I pulled the car off the highway. Now my grandfather died when he was in his 40s from a heart attack. My grandmother from a heart attack. We have a lot of heart diseases in our family. And I was a heavy smoker, and my mom kept telling me, you're going to die from a heart attack. And then I'm getting these pains in my heart, but real sharp pains. Okay, anyways, the pains passed. So a month later, he's telling me, you want to quit smoking? And I'm like, yeah, I actually do. So he tells me, come tonight to this hotel, you're going to quit smoking. And I was like, what do I just come to the hotel? Well, what is it? So he tells me, ever heard of quitting to smoke through hypnotism? And I said, yeah, I actually did hear about it. So he says, come today to this hotel, you're going to quit smoking. And in my mind, I was like, it's a Friday night, it's Shabbat. Told him, does this cost anything? I don't want to do a business transaction on a Friday night. He tells me, give me $40. $40? I gave him $40. That night, I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk there. I'm not going to drive there. And bear in mind, I'm not observant at all. I'm like zero observance. I walked to this place. I walk into a room, was in a hotel, like in a conference room, maybe 30, 40 people. Comes a doctor up on the stage, starts giving over a lecture about what happens when a person smokes, what happens to the body, what happens to the blood, what happens here and there, and he shows all these slides. And then comes the hypnotist. He goes up on the stage and he starts the hypnosis. And then, he wakes everybody up. He tells, don't look at your watch. How long do you think you were out? People say 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, it felt like 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. We were hypnotized for an hour and 15 minutes. Anyways, I walked out of that door and I never touched a cigarette since then. 17 years, almost 18 years, I don't smoke anymore. And I walked out of the room. I went to the restaurant in the hotel where I was staying, and I was sitting in the smoking zone. I think they don't have such things there anymore. But I would sit in the smoking area, and I'm holding the cigarette in my hand. I don't want to smoke. And when I used to go to sleep, I used to sit in bed, smoke 3-4 cigarettes, to finalize the day and go to sleep. Then I would wake up in the morning, I wouldn't even open one eye, already was a cigarette in my mouth. And I wake up in the morning, I don't want to smoke. I'm looking at the cigarettes. And I didn't want to tell anybody. I was like, nobody will believe me. So for 2 months, I didn't tell anybody anything. And my sister came to visit me around that time. After a week that she's with me, she was like, what's going on? When you're not smoking? I told her, no, I quit. She was like, no, come on. I told her, well, you just saw yourself a whole week. I'm not smoking. Nobody could believe. I was such a heavy smoker. Nobody believed that I quit. When I went back to New York to visit a friend, he says, okay, let's step out to have a smoke. He's smoking, and he tells me, why aren't you smoking? I told him I quit. He's like, nah, you? I said, yeah. He goes to me like this on my pockets, looking if there's a box. And I told him, no, I quit smoking. Nobody could believe. And up until today, I never touched a cigarette. 17 years. It's almost going to be 18 years. Now, this is my personal miracle story how I quit smoking. Now, when I tell it to people, people say, okay, well, wow, what a luck that you stopped in that place to buy the money, or then that person met you. And I say, this is not luck. This is the reward that the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave me because I was so excited about the mitzvah of Mezuzah. I wasn't observant at all. It was maybe 3 months after my experience. I used to put tefillin on in the morning, and I used to not eat meat and dairy. That was my level of observance. And it was so important to me to have a mezuzah, but not only on the front door, on all the doors. And the best of the best. I was like, I'm not saving money here on the mezuzot. Give me the best that you have. And I saw the reaction. I was so excited about the mitzvah of mezuzah that Hashem right away gave me a reward that there was no chance based on nature that I would ever quit smoking. I was like, I'm going to die a smoker. And Hashem says, oh yeah? I'll show you what's the power of a mitzvah. And against all odds, I was able to quit smoking in such a miraculous way that up until today, now I smell cigarettes from a mile away, I get nauseous. And I give it only for the zchut of the mezuzah, only because the importance of the mezuzah and how everything was around it. And that's how I learned on my own flesh, is that when you go beyond the letter of the law, you go beyond what Hashem tells you. Hashem tells you A, and you says, no, I'm going to make it a beautiful A, not a regular A. I'm going to go all the way. And you melt Hashem's heart. That's where you really climb to a higher level, that you do everything beyond the letter of the law. This is called a chassid. And a Chassid says to Hashem, whatever you tell me, I'm going to do much, much more. You're not required, you don't have to do it, but you do it because you want to. And you know what? Not that we're doing it for the sake of getting a reward, but when you go the extra mile, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, you melt his heart. He will give you anything that you want. Just go that extra mile. So I have a personal relationship, so to say, with the Mezuzah, because I saw that I was so excited to do a mitzvah. And that's how I was when I became observant. Every mitzvah was so exciting. But specifically the Mezuzah, I saw how it not only guarded me, how it blessed me, how I saw such a huge abundance, not necessarily in physical. I didn't need the money here. It wasn't about the money. The abundance, this blessing that I got is that I got my freedom. Looking back, I was like, this is one of the worst habits a person can have, is smoking. It's just disgusting, it's costly, stinks, you're dependent on some stick. It's like, I couldn't, how could I smoke 15 years? Now then, cigarettes were cheap. Now cigarettes is 40 shekels a box. 40 shekels a box! When I used to smoke, it was like a shekel and 15 agorot. So, but it didn't penetrate into my mind. How could I smoke for so many years? So here you see the power of the mitzvah, and specifically the power of a mezuzah. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to give you the mitzvah, you already can choose if to go the extra mile or not. But we learn from here that not only that the mezuzah has a power of guarding you, the mezuzah has a certain power in it that gives you a certain abundance. And it's a certain mitzvah that the Kadosh Baruch Hu says you are allowed to benefit from its reward because you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. The fact that you're getting the reward, that's because this is part of the mitzvah. So we're allowed to do the mitzvah for the sake of the reward, and not only that, we have to beautify it. So go and buy yourself beautiful mezuzot. Make sure all your doors in the house have mezuzot. And needless to say, this is a very unique mitzvah that we have as a nation of the Jews. Everywhere you're driving in different neighborhoods, you see a mezuzah. Oh, here's a Jew lives here, a Jew lives here. Sometimes you drive in different neighborhoods, you see one house has a mezuzah, one house doesn't have a mezuzah. This is a symbol of pride to our nation, and we have to carry it proudly, that we have a mezuzah on our door. We carry Hashem's name on our doors. And needless to say that the reward is that He guards us and blesses us, and we get this abundance. So I like not only seeing the practical part of the mitzvah, but also seeing the beyond the practical, that we have to learn from that we have to do the mitzvot beyond what Hashem tells us to do. It's not just to do it according to what the book says and says that's enough to me. Go the extra mile. The Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you want me to go the extra mile with you? Then you go beyond the letter of the law with me. And this is how it works, measure for measure. You go beyond the letter of the law, the Kadosh Baruch Hu also stretches and He goes way beyond what you deserve to get. B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit to constantly be involved in mitzvot and constantly carry the name of Hashem with us. And needless to say that we should all be blessed with an abundance of physicality and health and wealth.